are listening to Think Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm your host, Damian Perdue, your proletariat guide on this monetary ride of audio delights. And of course, I'm joined by Paulie C.
Yo.
And today the C could stand for currency or
Cash money.
Corruption.
Conspiracies. Control.
Yes, control. There you go.
Why is that?
Because today we're going to talk about money and power from Musa to Musk, the history of how rich people have ran the world forever and how we'll never escape.
Can't beat the elite.
Can't beat the elite. So I was actually thinking about how we're on the verge of seeing, Mr. Musk become the first trillionaire in history that we know of. Right now, we'll get into some of the.
Do we know that though? Is that actually happening? Is he?
It's projected. I mean, he's worth over $500 billion now, so it's projected to be. He will, out of anyone, he probably will be the first trillionaire. And, unless something crazy happens and everything collapses and he flies off to Mars, who knows? Or he goes to Mars and they find some kind of mineral deposit there and he makes even more money. I part of the reason for coming up with this topic is I feel that there's always, like, every generation, we think in terms of, rich and poor, and how we kind of always think that it's only happening to us, right? Like, this is the only time in history that, the 1% is controlling everything. And it's like, unfortunately, it's not. It's kind of the history of humanity or society or civilization, in the very least, that the one with the money controls it all. And not every society. I mean, there are some, I believe some of the indigenous Americans, Native Americans, Indus Valley civilization, there are like examples of ones that weren't fully controlled by the rich elite. But for the most part, and you go back, all the way to ancient Babylon to now, it's pretty much been the elite controlling things. And I mean, right now, we are in unprecedented times where you think about after World War II, you kind of had, I don't want to say a leveling off, but you did have a kind of movement towards equity and equality. There was it was trying to get that way, but I feel like that only made the autocrats and the oligarchs of the time more PO'd and basically, figured out other methods of making even more money and control. And a similar thing happened after the pandemic, or from the pandemic till now, right, in 2020. You would think, as everyone else suffered and lost money and kind of, had to change up everything, and then you saw inflation, now prices are higher, product is smaller. But not for the richest men in the world, though. From 2020 to at least the beginning of 24, which I would assume it's even more now, the 5 richest men in the world more than doubled their combined fortunes from $405 billion to $869 billion. They averaged at $174 billion in financial assets each, and their aggregate assets grew at the rate of $14 million per hour. Per hour. That's insane. Now compare that to out of the world population about 8.2 billion, okay, the World Bank estimates that 44%, or 3.6 billion, live below the upper middle income country standard for extreme poverty of $6.85 per day. So think about that. You have 44% of the world is making less than $7 a day. And these guys are making $14 million an hour. For what? Selling us crap.
Yeah, but without that crap, what would we do?
How else would we spend our $7 a day? But, there's like, and I've seen it in all over the place. I mean, go to certain countries where they don't make as much as we do on average here in the U.S., right? Like down in Mexico, and you have kids that work at like a Starbucks. Mm-hmm. Their rate of pay is a lot lower than it is here. They can't even really afford to drink the Starbucks. And that situation occurs like around the world.
I mean, because it's one drink is so much of their paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess, like percentage of a venti latte versus, different countries. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, per versus their pay.
Well, and that's the problem is that when you have these certain kind of, franchised businesses that cater towards, tourists or people, with money in those countries, they kind of keep the price the same as it costs in the U.S., right? So it's still $7, $8 for a latte. But if you're only making $20 a day or less, you're not going to buy a $7 latte, right? Mm-hmm. And, and let alone 44% of the world making $7 a day, which is insane. And of course, but then, you get the billionaires, they always want to like be the victims, like they're always the ones saying, well, I made my money fair and square and, I shouldn't have to give away my stuff. But there's a lot of them follow this. It was written by Carnegie, pretty famous rich guy. Mm-hmm. It's a book called The Gospel of Wealth. Okay. And in it, he talked about philanthropy, right? So you get philanthropy is kind of the guilt pressure relieving mechanism for the rich, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that some of it is helps the world, I guess. I don't know, but a lot of it is just kind of, all right, I have all this money, and they know they look bad when they're not helping or contributing to society. They're just hoarding the money. So they create this philanthropic endeavors to make themselves look good a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Museum of Science and Industry.
Mm-hmm. Building churches, building schools, but it wasn't naming after themselves,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't even gotten into, who.
But I'm just saying making a donation and taking the name of something. There's one thing to build something and leave something for us. You know what I'm saying? True. Like, I know it's like they stole from, well, at least like to cape for Carnegie for a minute, at least he like wanted to give us education and things like, it's like something to give back to us.
And he did say, I forget the exact quote, but he said basically.
What are the people nowadays doing for us, though? Because the attitude that I get from the higher ups and the people that support the higher ups is that I got to earn my chance at being like them.
Yeah, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I don't deserve anything.
Mm-hmm. And they always kind of play this like rags to riches story, which I feel like sometimes, yes, it's true. I don't know how, like even I was
how many who's rags to riches that
exactly
like,
truly rags to riches, because they all act like Bezos acts like, oh well, I built Amazon from the ground up and out of my garage, and it's like, yeah, but he got like $200,000 startup money from his parents who had money. Now $200,000 maybe is not a lot once you're making millions, right? It's a similar thing now with Musk. It's really interesting because
his parents were wealthy, though.
Well, his dad was wealthy, and then there's all this dispute. He claims he didn't get anything, and that when he was in college, he was like he went in $100,000 in debt, right? That he left South Africa at 17 with just his backpack and all this, like this rags to riches story. But then his dad comes out and says, no, like he literally said he was an emerald thief. Like that, basically he was selling emeralds. He was like he was an emerald smuggler in South Africa and Africa, but then there's disputes of that. There's some researchers saying, oh, that's not true. But then it is, he did have a lot of money. He owned his own planes. He had an engineering business that made a lot of money.
Are we living in like a Bond movie or something? Because doesn't that sound
Yes.
like, Sean Connery would be going after that guy, but then now Daniel Craig would be going after like the elite.
Errol
like,
Musk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the elite,
for sure. Well, they all have like these
billionaire,
mystery jets.
Yeah.
You know? They're all like flying around and, and they all meet up with each other on these like super yachts. They're like the size of cities.
Yeah.
And they kind of like, it is very much like Bond movies, or the Bond villains.
Yeah.
I
say, well, do we have a Bond? Do we know if there's a secret agent out there that's just like the best cat,
I wish.
But then it's always like, just like James Bond, it's
all-
always like rotating by generation, because you can't be the kind of sad when you're 60 years old and the top secret agent in the world,
I always do wonder about that. Is there any actual true kind of rebel out there? I mean, you have these kind of like
there's like a CIA guy out there that's just like insane, like just like sending him to save the world.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Makes you wonder.
Well, I think, but you get the, the guy that created James Bond, was it Ian Fleming?
Okay.
Yeah, he was an MI6 agent.
Okay.
So
Little
a lot of this
insight,
kind of little insight, but also propaganda.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you think of like we all love spy movies and everything, and it's always like these CIA agents that are like trying to save the world. But in reality, if you really get into like what the CIA does and their coups,
No, I'd say that doesn't sound on brand.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there really is any. They probably think they're James Bond. They think,
Yeah.
or they tell themselves that. But yeah, it's interesting that, and I think people don't, we want to believe that there's hope that we could get out of this state of just kind of, working our asses off and not really getting much, and just, these rich people just getting more and more rich, and that it's something different than in previous times. And don't get me wrong, I mean, in a lot of ways, we are better off than like the serfs in, medieval Europe, and like the kings, who knows what they were doing to their commoners.
Yeah.
Right. So we do have a little bit better, but it's like this debt slavery system that we're in is a whole different kind of way of oppression.
Oh yeah, no, like your life worth is like based on what you're working and what you can do to compete against that.
Exactly. And you you get into this, we fall into the trap of believing in the mechanism of making money, which is just essentially created by the rich in and of itself. For the last, 1,000 years, at least several hundred years, since the banking system was 1100s, I think. And then I know like in the 1600s, that was like in the Bank of England started. And then you have, like the Rothschilds and everything in the 1700s. So at least, let's say from like the 1500s on, you have a system of money that we all are kind of like participating in and are conditioned to believe that's the way it should be. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no way of figuring out a way out of it or an alternative system, because we're so entrenched in it.
It would have to logically just bust. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
And just
unfortunately, the human existence would have to be hinging on this thing, and it would just bust, and then we'd have to, as a society, come up with something better.
Yeah.
But I think it's just weird with the technology we have, the knowledge we have, that as human beings, as a society, we haven't figured out how to like help each other in a better way and not make it such a struggle for so many people.
Else. Well, I think it's because there's still this, this mentality that comes from the ancient times, and these rich rulers, like
just like a caste system or like the separation of classes or whatever.
Whatever it is, some kind of like mental virus that infiltrates the mind of, people that want to be a rich person and be, ultra wealthy. And it, in its different forms, right? If you go back, you had more of the pharaohs and kings and rulers and emperors that were the ones who had the wealth and power. Now, there also were the kind of, the social elite, behind the emperors and rulers. Some emperors didn't really have a lot of wealth themselves, but they had the power, they had the military.
They had islands, they had girls.
Yeah, exactly. They had their own private boats.
Yeah. yachts, if you will.
Yeah.
The ancient yachts.
The ancient yachts. Big wooden ships called the Lolita something. No.
Sorry.
No, but it's true. I mean, it goes on and on. So I don't know. The other part of it, too, is the kind of what creates capital, what creates wealth. For a long time, this was based on precious metals, right? Mm-hmm. So now it still is, but it also, obviously with the invention of crypto and aside even from crypto, just think of like the credit system, digital money. I mean, digital money has been around for a long time. Crypto is its own new thing. But I mean, going back even into the 80s and 90s, you had, about 85 to 90% of the world's economy was run digitally through the banks.
Okay.
But I don't want to get too much into the history of money because I do actually would like to do an episode on that because that's a whole fascinating subject as well, from that
You've
would
kind of done that, but I know
Bitcoin.
you've done one aspect of it though.
Yeah.
But the history of money, I don't think you've done.
Not a total history of money one, but which is actually a really good book too by this author Jack Weatherford, which is if no one's ever read it, check it out. It's a really good read too. It's really easy. He kind of writes about money as if money is like the main character in this story, but
okay.
I mean, it's not. It makes it more interesting than just kind of like.
Isn't money sort of just a concept, though? I mean,
it is a concept, but it's like the way he writes about money, it makes it seem like it's a central character. Okay. I'm just kind of speaking metaphorically, like not really. I don't know if that was his intention or not. Okay. But it's pretty interesting. It's a good one. I think it's funny, just while we're on the subject of money and like old money and stuff, like hearing about like, just off the coast of Florida, they found treasure. It was coins from Spain in the 1700s, and it's like it's valued at this, and I'm sure it has value because of like the gold that they used or whatever. But it's like it's just funny to me that it's like this old money has value, I guess, Yeah, and because it's still precious metals are still.
Yeah, it's not legal tender, but it's because the precious metals or even probably novelty too. I'm sure probably would it's not just like the cost of gold, like
exactly. I mean, if you found like a ceramic statue from ancient Rome, it'd be worth money, even though it's not a precious metal. But it's the where you're talking about like the coinage and the worth. It's interesting that it's still gold. I mean, it's still kind of smart to own gold, even though we don't operate on the gold standard anymore.
Well, then you have like the recessions and parts in the markets aren't great and that goes up a little bit in price. Like, I guess I bring that up because of like, how many cash for gold spots did you see popping up from like 2009 to 2013? Yeah. And that's like in the wake of one of the biggest recessions ever. Now I don't see them as much, but I know they're still there. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other. I mean, we could, we do the history of money. We throw that in there because you think about like the title loan places, all these like, it just ties into the whole. There's like waves of this stuff though. Escape rooms, things you see in a mini mall and it's trendy.
Those Cinnabons, man, I'm telling you,
they're disappearing. They don't have any Gene Takovics to run them anymore. Well, inside reference there.
Yeah. Well, we better call Saul and go to break. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into actually some of the richest people in history, going back to ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt on through to the robber barons and the tech elite of today on Think Theory Radio right after this.
This is a WCPT Civil Rights Snapshot. The National Afro-American League, or the NAAL, was formed in 1887 by Timothy Thomas Fortune. Fortune sought to create one of the first all-black civil rights groups in the nation. Being born into slavery and seeing the rise of groups like the KKK, he felt as he needed to fight these injustices by giving a voice to those without one. He proposed the formation of this group in his editorials for the New York Age. He founded the group with the goal of combating suppression of voting rights and inequalities in black and white school funding, among other inequalities. For instance, many groups went about tackling lynching and Jim Crow laws, while other groups instead focused on swaying political opinion and gaining political power. The first national conference took place in Chicago in 1890, where they ratified the Constitution, committed to the fight for the rights of African Americans across the nation. After years of financial hardships, the NAAL split up in 1893. This wasn't the end of their fight by any means, though, as they sowed the seeds of change for future groups like the NAACP to come and change the world. Please stay vigilant about our civil rights. The fight is never over.
It's the biggest savings event of the year. Menards, 11% rebate ends Thanksgiving Day. Save big money on everything you need for any project. We've got something for everyone. Homeowners, contractors, DIYers, the kids, and even grandma. Hurry, Menards 11% rebate ends Thanksgiving Day.
Save big money at Menards.
11% mail-in rebate is a merchandise credit check. Good on future in-store purchases. See menards.com for details.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien, and today we are talking about money and the power. Money and the power. How rich people have controlled their lives since the beginning of time. I mean, it does go back to the origins of civilization. You go back to Mesopotamia, and we've probably, now a lot of it is hard to know how rich some of these ancient kings were because it's lost to history, right? We don't have.
But I would imagine just like, you know, it wasn't like they had crazy great economies everywhere back in the day. I mean, you know, depending on when you're talking about here.
Well, some of these, I mean.
Well, you're talking about the 1500s or whatever? Or
no, I'm going back.
Way back. Okay. Okay, but I'm not talking about the kings. Okay, but I'm not talking about just the kings. I'm talking about the fact that, like, the kingdom, the.
Oh, yeah, the lower rung or whatever.
You know, like the next wave of the economy or whatever.
Well, the disparity.
Or even just, you know, what value their system had versus anything.
Well,
so,
and that's
like,
another.
So at the same time, it could be, you know, like, yeah, he's way richer than Elon Musk could ever imagine.
Right.
Because, you know, he'd have 99% of the known wealth.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you don't really know even how, because also they use different terminology too as well, and it's hard to kind of adjust to like, okay, what's that would be currently worth, right? But one of the oldest that we probably was one of the richest kings in the earliest first one was Sargon of Akkad, who was a Mesopotamian king who founded the first empire in the 23rd century BCE. Now, he had, they used to have these things, they called them har, which just means ring, and they would use silver and other precious metals, and they would make rings out of them. Some were wearable, but most of them were like coiled rings, like a bed spring or a slinky. And, you know, they were bigger, different weights. And they actually have some here in Chicago at the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures in Hyde Park and the University of Chicago over there. It's a pretty good, if you ever want to go see like ancient culture, like they have things from, you know, the Assyrian Empire, Mesopotamia, Egypt.
Is that connected with U of Chicago at all, or is that just okay?
Yeah. It's right on the campus. It's connected with the school and everything. But they have some of those coins there, or they're not coins yet. They were called har. They were the rings, I guess.
Yeah.
So he was probably, you know, we don't have any full records of how much he was worth, but considering he was the king of the first empire and they had control over precious metals, probably was pretty rich.
And I don't know how civilized a civilization is in 2300 BC, you said? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know,
2400 BC or whatever it would be.
Yeah. And I mean, these were, and this is, you know, kind of, you know, for the par, like every king, you know, going throughout the years, through the centuries, I'm sure the disparity between the ruling elite, the kings, the noble class, and the lower class commoners was probably pretty wide gap, you know. And, you know, and it goes throughout, you know, throughout history, you get the gap widens, it closes, it widens, it closes. I think right now it's widening again.
Yeah.
But you also had...
I don't know, I think of, you know, like the different tactics kings have had. I just always go back to the potato thing, what was it, the potato fields, and like nobody's eating enough, you know, like don't steal the potatoes, and then the peasants would steal the potatoes. king was encouraging that.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I always loved that story.
Yeah. Well, you reminded me of another, when I'll get into it in a second, this one, it was a Roman emperor that was doing some shady stuff to make his money. But, we'll go through time. We're going through time. So, of course, we gotta bring up Egypt because these pharaohs had money.
For those playing at home.
So supposedly the richest pharaoh in ancient Egypt was Amenhotep III.
Great guy. Lovely guy. Sorry.
He was the best. He was from the 18th dynasty.
Okay.
Which is amazing to think. I mean, it was 1388 BC, and he reigned for about 30 years until 1351 BC. That was the 18th dynasty.
Yeah.
That long ago.
Wow.
He arrived at the throne at just a whopping age of 12 years old. And he married Tai, who became the great royal wife he inherited from his father, Tutmos IV, a country with wide borders and an estimated wealth of trillions of dollars.
What, adjusted for today's value?
We assume. Like I said, it's hard to kind of...
Goes back to what I was saying earlier, that probably 99% of the known, economic wealth or value of that economy. Mm-hmm. Especially in the sense that you got to count the land, too, because it probably wasn't divvied out like the American way where...
right.
Hey, I bought that. It's my, it's probably
he controlled all of it. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And he was... it was a combination of different factors, but he had control of the Nubian gold mines, which is where really
there you go. Yeah, and even all that, the minerals and
yeah, and that earned them great fame. Their coffers were full of gold, and their vassals bowed to powerful rulers, says Egyptologist Zahi Hawass in his book *The Golden King*. And he was pretty smart about the way he maintained his wealth. Instead of fighting to protect, what he did was he used conversation. He would send messages on small stones, which became known as Amarna letters, and he would write them to foreign leaders. And he became a great diplomat doing this. And what he would do is he would send gold to these other nations. So they basically that just showed him wow, this guy's got money. Right, so they would just bow to him the great Amenhotep, which is pretty smart on his part. Instead of just starting a bunch of wars, he's like, I got so much gold, I'm just gonna, give him some gold,
yeah,
and so he maintained that, and him and his wife were basically worshipped as gods, at this point. Ancient Egypt, flourished in architecture and science. They incorporated artistic elements from other countries. More than 250 buildings, statues, and temples were built during his time. And but he was succeeded. His kids, so his son Akhenaten, who was the first one to create a singular monotheistic religion. He wanted to get rid of all the pantheon of Egyptian gods, and there was only one god, Sun Ra.
Okay.
And but then they kind of got him out of there. They're like, nah, we're going back to the old way. And his grandson was the great King Tutankhamun.
Oh, okay.
But they're better known than him. They never reached the levels of wealth like Amenhotep III.
Yeah, I got you.
And
so he's a Nepo baby, but he's just more popular.
Well, he was who?
Tut.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think, who would that be? There's got to be someone that came from money that became a movie star or something, and it's their dad was richer, but he was way more famous. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be the example. Tut would be a movie star that came from wealth, or I don't know.
A rich kid, a trust fund kid who becomes
Paris Hilton. Tut is Paris Hilton.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I'm glad we got to the bottom of it here on Think Theory Radio. Heard every week, 6 o'clock. Saturdays on WCPT.
Now, moving on to some of the other famous rich billionaires, because it was we think that billionaires is a new thing, but no, like I said, they've been running the world forever. Now, we know King Solomon.
Well, I think billionaires in the sense that owning an exact like billion US dollars.
It's different because now they're individuals without kingdoms.
We're putting a number on it, I guess is what I'm saying. So like let's for the sake of it erase the number and call it like the super duper rich. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's been super duper rich forever.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, ever since the civilization started, essentially, because that's when you had an ability to, absorb wealth. Before that, everyone was it was nomadic, they were tribal. You were more just kind of living to live, You were a little bit more living in kind of tune with nature as opposed to like, hey, we're settling here. We're going to hoard the cattle. We're going to mine the gold. Mm-hmm. We're going to build these buildings.
Control the industry.
Mm-hmm. Create these temples. Control these
the land,
people.
Control the water. Control whatever.
Exactly. Control. Mm-hmm. But King Solomon, which we all know is kind of famous, right? It's estimated his worth, and now he was king of Israel from 970 to 931 BCE. He's estimated at $2.2 trillion. I guess every year for his 39 years, and the thing about it, he died at 39.
Oh wow, the ripe old age.
Yeah, right. He was an old man back then. They're like, you made it to 39. Wow. For every year, 39 years ago, said that Solomon received 25 tons of gold as tribute.
Jeez.
And that alone works out to more than 40 billion. Most of Solomon's riches came from business, trade, and tributes from Arabia and the Levant. His throne is said to have been made with pure gold coating and ivory inlays, along with 12 lion statues and even a footstool made of solid gold. He was so rich that it is said that his immense wealth caused silver to become worthless as rocks. That guy.
I don't know. I'd be that guy hoarding silver.
I'm just waiting for, I know it's going to come back.
Yeah, but then, like, I wouldn't get the wealth. I'd just die poor, and my kids would have all this. Like, here, just haul it out. We don't want all this silver. And, oh, what are you doing?
Right.
No. And then, like, the grandkid or whatever is just like, Dad, why would you do that?
Right.
You mean you were sitting on tons of silver because Grandpa was a nut job? Why did you get rid of it?
It's like the guy that bought a Pizza Hut with his Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're talking about in order, not like we should specify he didn't buy a Pizza Hut franchise.
Oh, right, yeah, he bought a pizza.
He bought a pizza with it.
With like 50 Bitcoins or whatever, that would be worth like millions now.
Yeah.
But you know who wouldn't have did that? Mansa Musa, one of the richest kings in all of Africa, or at least West Africa. He was a king of Mali, but he also pretty much was the whole like West African kingdom he ran. He was so famous and so rich that his face was on like maps, European maps, like the European,
yeah.
What do you call those map makers?
Yeah,
I know there's a word for it, but they would put his face on there. Like, here's West Africa. It's like Mansa Musa's face.
How would they know what he looked like? Were they just guessing?
Yeah, I mean, they're very crude drawings.
Probably,
they weren't like they weren't photorealistic.
I don't know. There were some good artists back then.
Yeah. But he was, his West African kingdom was likely the largest producer of gold in the world at a time when gold was especially high demand. And it's actually hard to put. He was so rich, we don't even really know. They estimate for 415 billion, but it could have been in the trillions. We don't really know because he was so wealthy. Check this out. During a pilgrimage to Mecca, he brought with him 60,000 companions and 12,000 slaves, each of whom carried a 4-pound gold bar. There were 80 camels that each carried a 50 to 300-pound bag of gold dust. There was so much gold that Musa single-handedly caused hyperinflation and a currency crisis in Egypt as he passed through. Just passing through.
Yeah. It's like demand
he
of
crashed the economy because he just walking through with all this gold.
Well, yeah, wouldn't that do that?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
But that's insane. Think about that. Like, think about Peter Thiel or whatever, Musk or whatever, or Bill Gates walking through, just causing inflation and
okay, now this
recession
makes me wonder out loud, just like the sports part of me, where it's like the Olympics are not profitable. Is that part of it? Where like while the city is hosting it, like everything's just kind of inflated? Like
I could see that.
But
I think there's multiple levels to that.
Oh, I'm sure,
like
absolutely, yes, yeah.
The...
But I'm wondering if that's like an element I never thought of before.
Yeah,
Because I think of the more tangible stuff, like the cost of infrastructure, or that sort of stuff, or the cost of just building. Yeah. No, anyway.
No, I could see that. That makes sense. We should look into that. Dig into it. We'll do a whole expose on the Olympics.
Oh my, that's been done. Yeah, done to death.
Moving around the world, we get over to India. We had Akbar the Great.
When was this?
This was 1542 to 1605 India.
Okay.
And they don't even know he had so much money. They can only estimate that they don't even know the amount of dollars, just that he was about 25% of the global GDP. 25%.
Do you think that there's people out there like Elon Musk that hear that and are like,
I can outdo that.
I'm going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go for it.
For sure. And then, I was reading an article about in The Guardian about kind of the ultra rich. And that's how they are. Like they meet with each other on these super yachts.
Oh, and it's just a giant micturation competition or whatever.
Yeah, they're like a big, money circle jerk. They're just like, but they get jealous of each other, and they're like, this guy, well, I got to outdo him, and I got to outdo him, and there's all these. I mean, you think about like, Davos, right? Like the World Economic Forum, and those yearly meetings, and it's all the rich elite. But that's like ones we know of, and you can actually watch YouTube videos of. But then there's like the Bilderberg conferences, which are totally private. We don't know what's going on in there. And, it's just a bunch of rich people talking about what are we going to do to keep control of the world, even though they try to, like, on the surface, say, oh, like, we're figuring out to make the world better. Yeah, right.
So I guess the U.S. holds about a quarter of the world's GDP.
Well, think about it. That's a country. This guy was one dude.
Yeah. One dude, yeah.
No, I know. And that's pretty insane, too, when you think about the wealth of that. And then, I was actually watching a little mini documentary with Bernie Sanders, and he was going down, I think it was in West Virginia. This guy was taking him around Trump, which has turned into Trump country. It used to be a big Democratic state.
Yeah.
And
it's all coal. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, for sure. And which never happened, right?
Well, it didn't. It's just not as efficient.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, or at least like it's just way more polluting. Like you could use coal, but it's just why, when there's so much at this point.
Right. But he was breaking it down about the wealth of the country. He said, look, we are the wealthiest country in the world, but do you guys feel like that? And they're like, no, I'm broke, I'm poor, I can barely afford health care. He's like, yeah, that's because if I have, $1 trillion and I live in the U.S., it boosts the whole economy of the U.S. up numbers-wise, but the disparity is totally different, right? So you have the rest of all these other people are poor. It's like he's basically saying everyone at the table, he's like, if I have $100 billion and you have nothing, together we all have, 100 million each.
Exactly. Yeah, that averages out to, exactly. Yeah.
So
I guess that's the whole point of the economic system of the country, though, is that instead of wealth hoarding, you got to move it around at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Hey.
I'm not an economics professor.
But then, okay, talking about, kind of that wealth and where does it tie into the banks, the banking system. So you have to go to the Medicis, the original banking families, and you got Cosimo de' Medici. Yeah, 1389 to 1464 in Florence. Beautiful place. I was just there over the summer.
Firenze.
Yes. Much better name. Yeah.
Firenze.
Fire.
Florence.
I know.
Hey, Flo, come here.
The Medici family was worth about $129 billion. The rest of the famous Medicis were focused on politics or the church. Cosimo cleaned up on the banking end of things. So he was more about the banks. And that was when they had to figure out, that was how the banking system really got established, because at that time, profiting off of money was illegal in the church's eyes. That was usury, right? So it was the Medicis that figured out you create a banknote. The banknote symbolizes the wealth. And then you can have different banks set up and you're transferring notes. So you're not actually profiting off of the money itself. You're profiting off of the notes. It was like a loophole in religion, right? And that's how the banking system got started. That's the origins of it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then here we are. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get a little bit more into some of these rich people of the world and also into, the robber barons. And,
I was going to say, we haven't even gotten to it yet.
I know, we're going to have to do a part 2, man.
Little modern, modern stuff.
Very quick.
Here, yeah.
Right after this on Think Theory Radio.
Stephanie Miller.
I get to say my favorite sentence in the entire world. Here comes Kathy Griffin, hero of democracy. Hello.
How are we going to do this? Because I know we're both going to want to talk at the same time because it's a love fest. I am so in love with you. You are so important and wonderful and funny and brilliant, and you are who I aspire to be.
No, you.
When I grow up, I want to be you.
No, you.
Stephanie Miller, weekday mornings 8 to 11 on WCPT 820. This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien, and today we are talking about money and power and the rich elite controlling the world. Like our guy Marcus Licinius Crassus from ancient Rome, 115 BC to 53 BC, net worth of $170 billion. He was known as the richest man in Rome with a personal net worth equal to the Roman treasury of the time. Now, interesting thing about him is what I mentioned.
That guy had to be
earlier.
on the cover of the Rome magazines all the time.
Like those, they were like
The richest
stone tablets.
Yeah.
He's carved in there.
How many of these are we going to sell?
But you know what he would do? One of the ways he would make money is he it's like the the lightning scams with like property. So he turned his soldiers into firefighters, okay? But then he would intentionally this is what it's believed happened. He would intentionally set places on fire to send his soldiers in to put it out, get money, then also take the property and build stuff on it.
Oh, so he's like essentially New York City landlord circa 1975?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's where they got it from. Then we have Augustus Caesar, another ruler of Rome. His net worth is about $4.6 trillion. And he controlled many of the world's most powerful states at once while holding significant personal holdings as well. His wealth peaked when he personally owned Egypt as part of his private property. Oh, I just own Egypt. No big deal.
Won it in a poker hand?
Yeah,
Like, how do you own
exactly.
Egypt? Yeah. That sounds like just something made up, right? Like, if you make this shot, you own Egypt.
Right.
All right. Whoa, no way.
Yeah.
Pay up, bro. You gave me Egypt, bro.
Yeah. He did it. Well, he just like conquered it.
I didn't think you
Killed everybody.
I had no idea that you would make.
Well, at the time, Egypt made up 25 to 30% of the global GDP. And it had some of the best agricultural land in the Mediterranean. So that's how he did it. And then you have, moving on, we got William the Conqueror.
Okay.
Pretty famous dude.
Yeah.
Worth about, from 1028 to 1087 in England, worth about $228 billion. He was an illegitimate son and the descendant of Vikings.
See, and that's a rags to riches story right there, right?
Yeah.
He didn't come from some sort of I thought immediately William the Conqueror came from nobility when you said that.
Uh-huh.
So, although who's to say he didn't based on that? But
Right, illegitimate son.
yeah, but usually they don't
Came
tend to
in.
be a nobleman from birth. So.
True. That is true.
Outcast, but I don't know.
Sticking in England, we had our guy with the, not the greatest rich name. He didn't have a name like William the Conqueror. His name was Alan Rufus. It sounds like very modern.
And
right?
Yeah.
He was 1040 to 1093 England.
Alan Rufus, nice to meet you.
And he was the nephew and early supporter of William the Conqueror.
Ah, there you go.
That's where he got his money.
Napo baby.
Just sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like a record producer from the 80s.
Right, Alan Rufus. That's probably what it is.
He produced the first Mariah Carey record. He was worth $195 billion. Moving over to Germany, you had Jacob Fugger.
Hey, easy.
It's a family show. Well, I didn't know if it's Fugger, so I was going to say.
Right.
I'm just saying, yeah.
Okay, all right.
1459 to 1525 AD, or CE, depending on which way you go. 277 billion. He was a famous banker for the Habsburg dynasty and the Pope, and he helped displace the Medici family as Europe's most prominent bankers.
Was that like Holy Roman Empire, baby?
Mm-hmm. And just skipping over a little bit to, because we really get over to Asia, Genghis Khan. He had, his wealth was more in land, so he had about $1 trillion worth of land.
Okay.
Because I don't think he was as concerned with money. And
yeah,
stuff.
no, it was conquering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just take it. Why buy it?
Mm-hmm. And then Emperor Shenzong, he had from 1048 to 1085 in China, he had 25 to 30% of the global GDP. And China's wealth at this time came from technological innovation and extreme diligence in collecting taxes. The Song dynasty's government was highly centralized, meaning the emperor held enormous control over the economy and was the first to use gunpowder and also pioneered the use of paper money. So that's kind of where, the original paper money goes. Now, I do think that that ended up collapsing because he just kept printing it. Like, it got to a certain point, it was like, and he was like, well, just print more. And that's how we make more money. And they're like, no, that devalues it. Nah, just do it. And then eventually it collapsed. And then so people didn't really do paper money for a while. Empress Wu, the only woman on this list, she was from 624 to 705 CE in China. She was worth 22.7% of the global GDP. And with a 15-year reign, Wu expanded the Tang Dynasty empire in Central Asia, making it one of the largest in the world at the time. Before she became China's first female emperor, she was a regent. Her son, the eventual emperor, was too young to rule. So that's the only reason she got to gain the power.
So I don't know why I'm after this just thinking about it, but just like with all these different eras, like, do you think there's any like sort of link, maybe not like a direct one, but like the idea of value, and maybe now that, later on in a civilization, they actually like had tangible wealth, like physical, like, coins made, and like, I don't know. I'm just thinking like, like would some of that ancient Chinese money have trickled down to modern Chinese money somehow? I don't know. I don't know how direct that could be, but like maybe through like a good or service or family or land value or something. I have no idea. I don't know. Just thinking.
I'd have to look into that one. Because I know there was, obviously when it shifted from the rules of emperors into, communism. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that wealth was dispersed, or if it was, or I'm assuming it all got taken. Kind of the similar thing
like
with
whoever's in charge, like the central power of the central bank, or the
Some like Russia with the Bolshevik Revolution, and they just kind of like, nope, we're taking your money, and giving it to the people supposedly. Mm-hmm. Although I always feel like in those, it's the same thing. Now it's like you have like, is communism even really communism? It's, you still have like this capitalism aspect to it, and money, and,
I'm waiting for the digital Robin Hood. It's like digital Robin Hood, like robbed a digital bank and dispersed. Check your bank accounts, right. Digital Robin Hood, just.
Yeah, where's that? I
don't know.
Why isn't like Anonymous? What happened to Anonymous? Why aren't they doing it? Hack the planet, man.
Oh, yeah. Whatever did happen to Anonymous? I forgot about that. There's the guy in like the Guy Fawkes mask, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Well, it was a group or kind
yeah.
of a loose group of
Yeah.
hackers. Supposedly, what happened was a lot of the central ones got caught by the FBI or whoever,
okay.
and then some of them work for the FBI now or other agencies.
Probably having coffee
Other
breaks.
three-letter agencies.
Having coffee breaks with Q from QAnon.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Talking at the water cooler. You watch a game last night, Q? No, anonymous. I did not.
Nope. But okay, so we talked about a lot of these ancient kings and everything, and we only have 7 minutes left. I don't know how we're gonna get into
I had this whole other thing. Yeah,
we're gonna have to do a part 2, man. But yeah, I was just thinking because we didn't even get into. We talked about the banking system. We talked about the Medicis, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the Rothschilds, okay? Which I'm not going to get into the conspiracy stuff about them, which is kind of whatever. But they are one of the richest families around. They were, especially at the time back in 1700s. They created a whole new style of banking, like family banking system, right? Now, the thing is, people don't realize, at that time, the reason, people always the conspiracy, the Jewish people run the banking system. And it's well, there's so many, Jewish people in banking because back then in Europe, Jewish people were not allowed to own land or property. So a lot of times they would get involved in the banking system to make money. And Mayer Rothschild, what he did was he got into the banking system, and then he had 4 or 5 sons, and he basically sent them off to work in different banks around Europe. So I was you're going to work at this one in England, you're going to work at this one in France, you're going to work here in Spain, and they created this network, this banking system family, and so they've for years since the 1700s they've been involved in the banking system, and they're still one of the richest families around, although they're not as rich as Elon or we haven't even got into the Saudi royal family, which is the richest family in the world, which, you just had the prince hanging out, at the Oval Office there. They're worth trillions. But they also have a huge, their disbursement in that family, there's about 15,000 members who the money is dispersed between. But the Rothschild family, they're estimated worth nowadays about $1 billion, but it could be anywhere from 400 billion to $1 trillion. But we don't know because they won't tell us. They're very secretive. And then, so you have the same thing with the Saudi royal family. It's how do we know, that's what always trips me out about the conspiracy stuff. It always focuses on the Jewish banking families, but you don't really hear much about the Saudi royal families, right? Mm-hmm. And they have a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And they put in a large amount of our economy. I think, I don't know what it is now. I know years ago, it was about $600 billion of the U.S. economy was from the Saudi money, So there's that. And then, the whole, I feel it's going to, we're just going to have to do a whole separate show because if we started getting into the robber baron stuff, that's a whole list of other people, leading into the modern era of money.
So do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2. I can mention, though, because, and I want to give a shout out to Think Theory radio listener Mello Lucas. Hit me up earlier, and he reminded me that today, he's like, wow, it's, actually your show today falls on the anniversary of the assassination of JFK Jr.
Yep.
So, that's a whole another conspiracy. But also, you talk about we've mentioned before, the business plot of 1933, and that was a bunch of the ultra rich. You had DuPont, you had I think Carnegie might have been involved, Rockefeller, a bunch of the rich elite at the time when they tried to overthrow the government. That's when our buddy General Smedley Butler. They came to him and they wanted him to be a figurehead. They wanted to overthrow Roosevelt. They were going to do a coup, and then they were going to put him in place, and they were going to rule things behind the scene. And they didn't know at the time that he was already frustrated with fighting these wars for the rich. I mean, this goes back. I mean, our 100 years, over 100 years of the U.S. fighting these like supposed wars for democracy and freedom, but really it's just for corporate interests. And Smedley Butler at the time got sick of it. He was sick. He talks about it, fighting these wars for Standard Oil, for these wars for the sugar industry and all these banana republics and all that stuff. And so by the time they came to him to attempt this coup, he was like, no. And he did try to expose it. They went to Congress. There was a whole, disposition or whatever, but nothing came of it, of course, because the rich people just said, we didn't do anything. This guy's crazy. And they probably, what I believe is that they figured out like, oh, you know what? We're going to have to go even deeper in the shadows and really control things in other ways. But that's a whole other story for a whole other episode. We'll have to do Money and Power Part 2. I want to thank everybody for listening. And we'll be back again next week and every Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. right here on WCPT 820 Think Theory Radio.
Hey, now you know I don't have to think of a new thing next week.
The Sports Cubicle.
We have a two-time national champion, head coach of the North Central Football Cardinals. It's Brad Spencer joining the Sports Cubicle today.
How much do you have to live in the world of the transfer portal?
If you look at what's going on, so much of college football at the higher levels particularly has become transactional. And we want to stay transformational. It's always been about being an all-American father, husband, and